Welcome to the podcast. Today, my guest is Luke Palmer.
Hey, how you going?
We've been having a chat here before we started. Normally, I would talk to people and say, "Hey, where did you start out?" But let's just start with the fact that you toured quite extensively with Dead Letter Circus.
Sure.
How did Dead Letter Circus come about, or how did you get the gig, and what did that involve?
I think it would have started with working with Matt Bartlam at Loose Stones.
Yep.
And we were good mates, and he started that. It actually started in his house, and we built a studio in his spare bedrooms, and it was very makeshift. And then, somehow he ended up buying, Loose Stones, and it was a great facility. And then I think something happened. We did a couple of albums. I think there was like a church album that we were doing at the time, and then there was also, very contrasting to that, Sunk Lotto did a single.
Yep.
And Forrester was involved in both of those. And we were fans of, I think the first Carnival record had come out, and we were just like, man, this is really well, like we were into the sound of it, and we're like, oh, this guy from Perth. And I think he was in Melbourne at the time. Anyway, he ended up flying up and doing the Sunk Lotto stuff there. And we were just like, okay, so there's another level to what we're doing here. And so, we got along really well. And then Forrester ended up moving up. But after that had happened, Dead Letter had done their EP as well. I think they did that in Brisbane or in Melbourne, actually. And then he's like, oh, well, if we're going to do a full-length album, maybe I'll come up and we'll do it on the Gold Coast, because there's a studio there that was great, and we all kind of got along well. And I think I was just teaching guitar at the time.
Okay.
And I was just in the little side room. And
How old were you when this was going on?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Well, it would have been 12 years ago, because I think my firstborn, Ari, was just born. I remember that was what was going on at the time. And then, I was just there. I was around. I think, and then we all kind of just they'd stick their head in and say hey, and they heard me playing some Carnival riffs and stuff like that, and they'd stick their head in and just go, oh yeah, that sounds cool. And then I think I ended up playing a couple of little bits and pieces on that This Is the Warning album. Mm-hmm. And then that was just on the radar, I guess, in the back of their minds at that point in time. And then when...
Because they were a fully established thing.
They were touring. They were booming, and Triple J were loving what they were doing. And so they were like flavour of the month. And then I think when Rob left and stood back, the guitarist... they were like, all right, we need to find someone creatively as well who can be, because Rob was such a creative force for the band. Mm-hmm. And then, Kim just wrote with a bunch of different guitarists, and we just set up a session one day and just wrote a couple of songs. And Kim and I really gelled in the creative space. And technically I was fine to cover everything that was going on. And then I think, Forrester had to listen to it one day and just said, all right, throw him on a plane. Let's finish this single in Melbourne. And then that began the process of The Catalyst Fire, which was the second full-length album. Mm-hmm. And, it was a bit of a cacophony of guitarists on that record, but, I was part of that one. And then it ended up being myself and Vinny playing guitar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So in the recording process, is there more guitars happening on the album than there is happening live? And how do you make that work?
Well, I mean, initially, absolutely. Rob was just the only guitarist. And then they would have, I think they had, Tom was another guy that was playing like a bit of keys and a bit of guitar live to kind of
cover
to cover that. But for the most part, the foundation of Dead Letter is that the bass is this driving force of the rhythm section, and then most of the guitar work is quite high.
Okay.
And it's very like U2-esque. It's like heavy U2, really. But it kind of evolved away from that, and then we ended up putting fatter rhythm stuff, and that's where the two guitarist thing worked. But for the most part, it was in the writing process. We do what's best for the song, and then we'll work out the live thing later. But for the most part, we would just you would craft two guitar parts that would work for the song, and that was pretty much what was on the record. And then if there's other layers, most of the time it doesn't matter if it's not there live because it sounds fat enough.
So was the band, when it played live, all completely live, or was there tracks involved?
We had tracks on an old, I don't know what it was, but sometimes it was minimal. So we played a click, and so it would spit the click out. And sometimes the song would just be click for like, 80% of the song. And then there might have been like this ambient sort of synth part that, Forrester might have programmed that comes in for like some part of the song. It's just the sound that was on the record, and you just kind of want that to hit. And yeah, there was bits and pieces of other sounds, and there might have been like a particular guitar part, or if that was like had a weird effect on it or something, and then we just go, let's put that on the track because it sounds good when it's in there live. But the tracks in that band, the tracks could go down,
and it didn't matter.
Yeah. It was pretty. We were pretty self-sufficient at that point, but it's less and less like that these days with certain bands.
So you play guitar. Is there other instruments that you play as well?
I still play a bit of bass. I'm terrible at drums, but I do like playing drums.
Everybody loves playing drums.
Everyone loves playing drums. Terrible at keys, but I love playing. In the studio, you inevitably have to play some bass synth, and I'm pretty good at just.
Well, if you know musical theory, it's not hard to kind of work your way around a keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
And with programming and stuff, you don't necessarily have to play it eloquently because you can always edit.
Yeah, and you get by doing what you got to do. And most of the time, I'm good at like piecing something together in the studio for like a piano part. Mm-hmm. And because I'm terrible, I might just play the right hand first, and then just MIDI merge and play the left hand separate. And then I'll just get it close enough, and then just. I usually hit my mate Ian Perez up to come and I just do this, but way better. Love the collaboration in the studio with just getting good players. I just don't think that you can beat that.
Yeah. Are you a fan of programmed drums, or you would much prefer to get a drummer in?
I depends on the band, depends on the project. I'm not against going full programmed. Like I worked with Boo Seeker on a couple of albums, and their sound was like doing the electronic thing, but as someone who doesn't really go hard on the electronic thing, if that makes sense. So it's like, organic sounds, but programming it, and it has a certain vibe that really suits what they do. And if you see their live show, it's very much like just two guys on stage, but it's a big full band sound, and they're just using samples and stuff to recreate a lot of it, and it's the vibe. And it works for them. But then I love recording real drums, and having stepped away from it for a while, doing the pop thing for maybe the last 5 or 6 years, I've gone back into recording real drums again with a bunch of projects, and just gone, I miss this. Like, miking up the kit, going into a studio, and it's nice.
You got a studio at home. How would you say it was size-wise?
It's a double garage that I've converted, so it's 5 meters by 5 meters internally, and it's it's all sound
separate control room, or
no, all one,
all in the one room.
Yeah. And for 90% of everything that I always did in a studio anyway, I hated having the vocalist in another room. Yeah. I always want to
have eye contact.
Just being able to turn around and just go, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this lyric and stuff, and you're right there. Yeah. Rather than, hitting the talk back and looking in, and you got the glass, and
I guess you're wearing headphones and hearing exactly the same thing that
Yeah.
the singer's
and
hearing.
My room's quite dead and treated. It's not like a vacuum, but it's nice. And, you know, I've got a baffle that's put the mic in front of, and I've never had an issue with the vocal sounding too live when I compress it, you know.
The recording that we listened to earlier on, that was by when we were in the studio next door.
Jacob, was
Jacob,
it?
yeah. And was that the studio space?
No, that was an Airbnb at the back of Byron Bay.
Oh.
And I pulled my studio apart and set it up in this. It's if you look at the video, you probably can't see a lot of it, but it's actually a big dome tent.
Ah.
And it's beautiful. It's in the hinterland, and it's you know, it had a deck and it had 2 baths.
So
flush.
it's quite open, so the sound is quite open.
It just sort of didn't really have any acoustic qualities that mattered. We thought it might sound interesting, or it could have been bad, it could have been good, but it was.
The recording sounds amazing.
It was just real and live, and it just worked. We're lucky. It's always throw the roll of the dice. And then we did one a few years earlier where we did exactly the same thing. We went to a place called Smoke Garage in Brisbane, set everything up, and it was just myself, Ian Perez, and Jacob, and it was very ad-lib, no clicks or anything like that. It was like, and we roughly rehearsed it, and then we played, I think there's 10 songs in that set, and it just was how it came out, you know. But that was kind of it's the opposite of the studio process for him, because he's very well thought out usually, and like, this sound has to be here, and we kind of crafted in a way, and then having it be really loose and jammy is a good contrast for him.
Yeah.
And because he's a great singer, he can do it live. So it's like, let's just do it live. As the more AI kicks in, and the more that side of the world, you know, everyone auto-tuning the crap out of their vocals and editing everything, and it's so easy to do, and everyone can work that out, how to comp a vocal together and make a perfect vocal take and all the rest of it. When you got a guy like Jacob who can do it live,
Yeah.
just
do it live.
Just do it live, and it'll be so obvious to people that you can do this, like, without the help of technology, you know?
Yeah. It's a good way of thinking. What was the thing that got you into music in the very first place?
Well, my dad got me into playing guitar. You know, I grew up with Hendrix, the Beatles, Black Sabbath, you know, Fleetwood Mac, all of that, you know, just good.
Very 70s.
Very 70s. Yeah, really good. I missed the 80s. There was not much in the 80s that he was a fan of.
Oh, wow.
So I rediscovered that more later in my life.
Okay.
Which was great, because I kind of was, keyboards, I don't like that sort of sound.
A lot of
I like
great guitar
guitars.
stuff in the 80s.
There's a lot of really great guitar stuff in the 80s. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up with that. Dad taught me guitar. I was like maybe 2 years old. I've got a photo of Dad sitting on the bed, and I've got a ukulele in my hand. I was obsessed.
Yeah.
And I played guitar every day and I had my first guitar when I was 5.
Wow.
I'd just lock myself in my room and play all afternoon. Yeah, just loved it.
Yeah. So what was the first gig that you ever did?
I think the first band that I ever formed, so I went to Palm Beach Currumbin High School, had a really great music teachers there. Mr. Reed, Andrew Reed, he's incredible violin player, really supportive. Monique McMullen was my music teacher there, and she was incredibly supportive, really good, like just gem humans that were, you know, really there for you. And in a public school, you know, you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But they were really great, really supportive. And then we had the music crew was great. So we had in my year, Cy Hanlon was in my class, and then, you know, there's a bunch of us that were playing music together. And a lot of these guys still playing music and doing their thing.
Yeah.
But Cy was the first drummer, and we got along really, really well. And then I remember his little brother Omar, we were like, oh, you need to play bass. He's like, I can't play bass. And it just reminded me of an episode of like South Park, and we were like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. And he just picked it up. He was playing Chili Peppers within like 6 months. This little kid just born with it. He was so great. I mean, we were playing, and we were playing like metal and heavy stuff. I think Korn and like Limp Bizkit was just kicking in, and it was so odd when you think about what those guys play these days.
Yeah. Where people's influences and what they listen to at certain eras in their life and what they're doing now. I remember I was talking with, did a podcast with Brooke Chevelle, and Brooks from Melbourne was heavy into music in the 90s, and he was like a full-on metalhead. Yeah. Loved it. Yeah. Like full-on into like heavy stuff. And but he was writing songs, and the band were all rejecting him, saying to him, your stuff sounds like country music. And he ended up being a country artist. Great. And he loves it. Yeah. But it's just interesting how you might be influenced and have from one era and then find your way into a completely different genre.
I think that the genre swapping thing, and when you have, say, like a heavy background and you go into something like EDM, or you have, like say you got like a rock or a pop sensibility, but then you find your way into country or whatever, you're always going to bring something to the table that's unique. Yeah. I think it's really good. Yeah. And I find I've been in almost every genre.
Well, when you're doing studio stuff, I mean, you would have a lot of different people walk through the door that you're producing now. Yeah. What's your favourite type of music to produce?
I think I enjoy all of it, but I enjoy that, 1 week I'm doing a country album, and then the next week I'm doing a pop record, and then, the week after that I might be doing, recording someone screaming their lungs out, And I think for me,
the variety is good.
The variety is really good, and it's really nice to jump between all of the different genres, and, you do a good job of all of it,
I guess, would you say that there's a lot of things that are similar regardless of what the genre is?
Yeah, I mean, a good song's a good song, right? I think if you peel everything back and your focus is on, is the arrangement right, is the melody right, are the lyrics right, that's all that really matters. That's going to translate across every genre. Yeah. And I think ultimately just letting... My philosophy as a producer is making sure the artist has their own unique voice and they're doing the thing that they want to do. Yeah. Rather than trying to like cookie cutter into, I want to sound like this.
You went to school at Palm Beach. What happened when you left school? Did you do more education in guitar playing, or?
No, I didn't actually.
Went out and played? Just went out and played?
I went out and played. I tried to, make ends meet by teaching and doing bits and pieces like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I kind of did a little bit of... I sort of jumped into the recording thing pretty quickly as well, because I was fascinated by that.
So you were teaching when the whole Dead Letter Circus thing came about. Prior to that, you were teaching. Yeah. While you were teaching, are you out playing live gigs as well? Or is it more...
bits and pieces. Like, there was a few cover band gigs and stuff like that. But not a whole lot. I feel like Dead Letter was really all right, we're going on tour. And it was a bit of a like, that was my first taste of proper touring. Yeah. And it wasn't like a local band kind of gig, you were straight into, we've got a sound guy, I've got a guitar tech, it was...
Travelling, getting on planes.
Yeah.
You toured America. What was that like?
That was unreal. Yeah, it was good. Bus, we had a really nice bus because a friend of ours was driving buses over there. Mm-hmm. And he put us on a bus by ourselves because we were going to share the bus. Oh, he's like, no, I want it to be an Aussie bus. I just want it. He goes, I'll cut my rate and we can all jump on the bus and just bro out. And I think there was 12 bunks on that bus and there was like 7 of us. And it was,
So you had a bit extra space.
Oh yeah. So it was straight into quite luxury. And the band had previously done it in like splitter vans and, you know, been tired and driving themselves and that whole thing is. So I kind of skipped.
So are you going from place to place on a bus? How far in between cities?
In America, you think it seems like it would be close, but they do like more of a zigzaggy thing.
Okay.
You know, sometimes it's like eight hours or so of driving, but it didn't really matter because we had a driver. So, you know,
Just get on the bus,
you'd
sleep on the bus?
Yeah, you'd finish up and by the time you've had a few drinks and sold some merch, it's 2 a.m. or whatever, and you jump on the bus and go to sleep and wake up in a new state and go again. Like Groundhog Day, but it was a good Groundhog Day.
How long did the band last for?
Well, it was 2005 they kicked off, and I think I joined in 2007. Actually, no, it would have been way later than that, actually. 2012, maybe 2013 when I joined.
Okay.
Maybe. I can't remember now, actually. I don't know if I've got those dates exact. Well, Ari was 1, so it must have been 2013 that I joined. And
So they'd been really going quite a while before you joined.
I think so. Maybe it was 2007. Yeah, so it was a few years.
Yeah.
So they'd done an EP, a full-length album. They'd toured.
Built quite a following.
Yeah, and they'd toured the world. They'd done South Africa, India, UK, America tours before I joined. And then we did America, we did Europe a couple of times, and heaps of Australia and New Zealand.
Is that all driven by record company or driven by the band themselves or management?
Yeah, they had management, they had record labels. You know, I think they'd been with a lot of kind of solid record labels in the time. So they'd been with Warner, they'd been with Unified, we were with BMG. As you know, just depending on
Did you have a good experience of the whole record company thing? What's your experience of that? How's that been?
Yes and no. I look back on it now and I think, you know, especially in that transitional period of like the 2000s to to now.
When streaming really taken off.
Yeah, it was right on that.
The crossover between
and it was
CD sales?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the money was like, it was like the Wild West. So there was perks of Spotify with the algorithm before it really, I don't know, I feel like it doesn't really favour independent artists now, but it was.
So there was a point where independent artists could actually really thrive on Spotify?
Absolutely, yeah. Yep, and now I think it's tightened up now and it makes it a lot more difficult. It's not to say that you can't, but But as far as record labels go, I think if there's something in it for them and they push it and something lands, they can be good for an artist. But then also, I definitely think that some of the deals are worded in certain ways that artists don't really understand what they're signing. And everyone's got their own agenda for sure. Everyone's there to make money off the back of, musicians who are a bit naive.
Yeah, I guess it, yeah.
It's just business, for them.
I guess it depends on how many layers in between the muso and the end result.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of layers.
There was very little.
A lot of people that have got their hand out.
There's a lot of money coming in and a lot of money going into a lot of different places between booking agents, managers, record labels, recouping and different bits of that, and publishing labels. It's like the money disperses pretty quickly, and then you got 5 members. I think we worked out at some point it was to go on tour. It cost us about $5,000 a day to be on tour, and so if you weren't getting, if we were doing regional runs, it might be an $8,000 fee for the night or a $6,000 fee for the night. It's like, well, we just did this one to
cover costs.
Yeah, you basically were just like, well, we're just going to stay on the tour and just save ourselves flying home and then flying back to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's where you got to be smart about how you do things to budget
Yeah.
for that sort of thing.
I wasn't really involved in any of that side of it. I was because I was late to join the band. I just kind of found myself just going, "This is what we're doing." I was like, "All right."
How did you find it financially for you?
Not great. No, but it was. I'm so glad that I did it, and there's a lot.
I mean, great experience.
Absolutely, and I think there's a credibility that came with it as well. I found as soon as, having done the years touring and that, obviously you have the experience. And then, it's funny that I found that bands that I was producing, even to this day, "Oh, you were in Dead Letter Circus." Oh, there's that little bit of credibility that makes people trust you.
Yeah, I guess that thing. It's like they know that you've done something worthwhile.
Yeah.
And
you're not just this guy that was in, bedroom producer and I don't know if this guy like fully gets it.
Yeah.
Whereas that as soon as you have a little bit of credibility like that, it's this guy's done stuff before.
Yeah.
And that definitely helped with, producing.
So at the moment, you're also still playing, like you're producing a lot, but you're playing live with Glen Shorrock.
Yep.
That's a new one that's come about.
A new one that's come about, yeah.
How are you finding that?
I really love it. He's a lovely guy. Yeah. Yeah, he and his wife Irene are so lovely to the band. And they look after us, and he's great. Like for someone who's 80 odd years old, and he's got the health issues and stuff like that. He's got to sit down and play, but he's just such a larrikin, and he's always
so many great songs too, man.
So good.
It's such a wealth of great songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all that Little River Band stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the solos in
great guitar parts.
Oh yeah.
So is another guitar player in the band with you?
For the majority, yes. Sometimes where we've sort of I've done a few gigs where
I would imagine it would be difficult to play a lot of that stuff. You'd need at least two.
The keyboard player has been doing some of the harmonies if it's if I'm the only guitarist on the stage. So he's got like a it works.
Yeah.
But a guy named AJ has jumped on.
Because there were a lot of harmony guitar parts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It needs to be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've made it work with the single guitarist and the keys or the other acoustic guitar. Like if we're playing Reminiscing, it's quite a clean sounding solo. So he would play the other part on the acoustic guitar as he's playing. But it's fine. But now we've got a second guitarist now. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that come about?
I did a few cruise ship cover band gigs.
Yeah.
And then Scott McDuff is the drum. He runs all of the bands that jump on the cruise ships, and most of the time it's just a weekend away, and just do what you do. And then he was like, come and jump on and play for Glen. And I was like, that sounds great, because having listened to that stuff growing up was really good.
Apart from Dead Letter Circus, what other touring?
Well, we were meant to do a run of shows with Keita Alexander, and that was very short-lived because COVID swept through and hit.
Wow.
And so I think we were a couple of shows in, and then everything shut down. And I think it was called Drop Fest, the surfing tour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What did you actually do with yourself through COVID?
Well, that's when I built the studio at home, and which happened organically, but also perfectly timed, because as I built it, COVID hit, and then I just was like, well, I guess I'm gonna dive into mixing and producing, and I was already on that trajectory anyway, so it kind of worked out really great.
Obviously, working at Loose Stones and working with Matt Bartlam gave you a taste of that sort of thing. But what was like the first sort of projects that you did in your own studio? What was it? Was it your own stuff that you were? A lot of people get into studios to produce their own stuff.
I've not done, like, it's funny, I've not really done that. And more recently, I've, like, maybe in the last couple of weeks, actually, I've had this moment of like, hey, I need to start my own project because, you know, and because I've been so busy.
But you've got all these skills and you've got all these people that you know that can help you out with that stuff.
And my own creative outlet as well, which, you know, is something that I've not really prioritized, but it will happen for sure. But it's just one of those things of, you know, you're spending so much time and energy doing
other people's
stuff. And, you know, I definitely see the need or feel the need to just do my own thing creatively at some stage.
Do you sing?
No, I wouldn't say very poorly. I can sing on key.
Have you ever sung lead vocals in a band?
No, absolutely not. It's always BVs and that kind of thing. And it's always, you know, coming up with harmonies in the studio for singers and, you know, telling singers how to sing, even though I can't sing, which is hilarious.
No, it is. I get it. It's because you actually deal with so many different people singing, and because you're actually critically listening to songs, I guess you know how you would like to hear the vocals sound.
Yeah.
Whether you would like to hear a vocal note extend or be short.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's all, you know, you do it day in, day out, and you start to experience different singers and you start to understand the voice. And if you do this, and if you need more breath before tone, you need to phrase it differently, you need to get your rhythm right, you need to get your pitches flat on this note, you need to sing it a couple of times, and, you know, just little like exercises that you get singers to do, like just sing this note, then this note, and just loop it like 20 times before you do this next take. Just little things like that you just sort of learn to do to just get the best out of the singer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, most of the time I'm coaching them through getting a better take out, but I can't sing. If you got me in front of the mic, it wouldn't sound great at all. You need to
apply some of your own techniques to your own singing. With the Dead Letter Circus, you were contributing to the songwriting. Did you have songwriting credits on the stuff?
Yeah, songwriter credit. We kind of ended up splitting everything equally.
Okay.
Across everything, but less involved in, say, like lyrics. You know, maybe a melody tweak here or there. But Kim was very invested in, this is the story I want to tell. You know, and we would, because it was a progressive rock band, it was very much we were very attentive to the music having its thing going on, you know, and it being very particular. And he was just like, yeah, this is right. I like that. I can sing over that. You know, it's very different to, you know, like a pop sensible thing where it's like you almost can always strip it back to just an acoustic guitar chord progression and a vocal, and just making sure, you know,
the chords and melody all work.
Yeah, they all happen almost as one unit, whereas in progressive rock, it tended to be a little bit more like the music was completely its own animal.
Okay.
And then the vocals would interweave around.
How would you describe, I mean, apart from using the word progressive rock, was there time signature changes and stuff within the music?
Less and less as we went on. We were open to it always, and then, you know, like strange phrasings and that within it. But I mean, a lot of it became like a bit of a rock band towards the end. Okay.
If you were doing a song, what would be the thing that would make you think, okay, an odd time signature might work? Would that come from a vocal?
Sometimes,
a vocal line?
Or a melody, or like a riff or something like that.
Because if you had a certain word structure, it would actually lend itself to odd time signature?
I think sometimes also like a melodic line or a riff or something like that, there's a certain freedom to knowing that I don't have to stick to 4/4 if I feel myself like a melody trailing into like a fifth beat. Or a 6 or a 7, you can just follow it. just keep following it, and then just go, oh, cool. Well, that's just going to be a 7/8, or
When the writing process is happening within that band, was it individuals bringing things to the table, or did it all happen together you were working on stuff together at the time?
We were all very proficient with Pro Tools and recording ourselves. And so there was a big chunk of it that was like, here, I've got this idea. We call it seeds. So we've got a seed here.
Okay.
And then we'd flick it to Kim and he would write over it, and then someone would flick something else to him, and then he would just, it all was dependent on if he resonated with a seed and something came out.
To get something vocally that would work.
Yeah, and then he would record something, and then we'd all just throw down on it. And to the point where that got a bit frustrating, because, the old school musician in all of us was like, no, we just want to get in a room now and jam this out. And, they lived in Brisbane, I was on the Gold Coast, and, there was, we all kind of had partners and families by the time I was in there. And so that was, the time restraints were causing us to do things separately. But there was a few, I think for the most part, we enforced like a chunk of time before every album where we would take those songs and we would all set up in a studio and jam it together. And then we'd always be hitting record and just going, oh, let's just jam this section a bunch of times. And then, we would just do that and loop sections. And that was always part of the process for us, so that we felt that connective.
Did any changes in the songs happen because of that jamming the songs out process?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then, you might start jamming something and just go, oh, we're just going to go down this road now, Yeah, no, it was always
So there was productive. A certain amount of, organicness to it.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I push bands to do it all the time now, where, we get, a lot of bands are, drummers can program drums and flick it and they get it. It's like, no, let's just get in the room and actually do the old school thing where you actually play together. Remember that?
Do you find producing bands now that the level of musicianship is of a high standard? Like, the great thing is everybody has so much better learning tools now, but people don't tend to play together as much. All the bands that I ever played with were playing 6-7 times a week.
Yeah.
And when you're playing together that often, there's a certain
chemistry.
Yeah.
And and that's less and less because of how easy it is. I think sometimes, technology and, like I said, the ability for everyone to do their own thing has, and even with Dead Letter, we didn't play that often together. Like we would, we had a great
chemistry.
We had a great chemistry live for sure. And that mostly came from just playing live. But sometimes, you would do some wacky editing and all sorts of crazy stuff in the studio, and then you just, all right, we'll work that out live later.
Yeah.
But you had to work it out live.
Yeah. And
then you had to jam it over and over before you go on a tour, and we'd do pre-production rehearsals and stuff. And then by the time you toured it a couple of times, you're like, this is
sitting and feeling really good.
Yeah. So it kind of happened a bit backwards in that regard. And I think that happens quite a bit now.
Yeah.
With bands. But I've been maybe, I've worked with a band called These Four Walls, great musicians. And, but they're on the same page with that as well. And we went out to a studio, place called The Barn, out, I can't remember where it was, out west somewhere. And we just set up and jammed through the stuff, they'd all contributed to the songwriting, and it was all like, I did my guitar bit, I did my bass bit, I did my drum bit. And it's just like we jumped in this like live space and jammed it out in a studio and hit record on a bunch of stuff and changed a whole bunch of arrangements and bits and pieces and parts. And then we're like, hey, that feels really good when we play it together.
Yeah.
And then they took it away and refined their individual parts with the structure changes, and then we jumped in the studio and recorded it, and it was great.
Yeah, it's a great way to go.
Yeah.
it's one of the things that I think I miss the most these days is I guess I remember talking to Brad Hosking about making a career out of music, and he said most people these days have what they call a portfolio career. And I hadn't heard the term before, but it sort of made a lot of sense, because you're doing a lot of different things in order to make enough money to be financially viable.
Yeah.
So you might, like you're producing, but you're playing live with Glen Shorrock, or you might be teaching, or you might be doing a whole different range of things. I mean, I do a whole different range of things.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like playing with a live band.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of...
It's what it's all about, right?
Well, yeah.
It's what it comes back to.
There's something in your brain with the chemical thing that goes off that I don't know the technical terms for it, but there's a level of satisfaction and joy out of doing that and sharing that with other people that you just don't get doing anything else.
Yeah. I think it's almost like the equivalent of like a team sport.
Yeah.
Where the collaboration and then when everything just comes together and you're just like, I feel really good.
Yeah.
And then especially when you see people in the crowd vibing off this thing that you created, it is very special.
It is very special, it is. If you had to pick a highlight of all of the things that you've done, what would that highlight be?
Like in any context?
In any context.
I guess touring is definitely is a highlight. Seeing Europe, playing shows, and both Dead Letter and Jacob, we did Europe tours with both of those guys. America was a highlight. I think we played. There was a show actually at the Forum in Melbourne. That was a highlight for me. I think that was kind of at the height of
the Dead Letter Circus.
Dead Letter Circus thing. Yeah.
What about that? What was it about that gig that was so great?
I don't know.
Did the band have a particularly good night?
We had a good night. We had an epic lighting rig set up. I can't remember. There was a band that was playing the night before and maybe 2 nights after us. And they're like, can we just leave the lighting rig? And our lighting guy was just a kid in a candy store because it was massive. And it was a pretty big venue for us, but it was that moment in our career where we did it and sold it.
Sold out.
And it just
packed house.
Yeah, I think it was like just at capacity.
Yeah.
And it was just such a great night. Everything was, had been on tour and we knew the songs. There was no, we were really confident with the set and everything. It was just...
So you could just enjoy the playing and not have to be...
We just enjoyed the moment of that show. And I just remember it was just really good. Something about that night where just everything was like humming along. And
does the band ever record their shows?
I don't think we ever did a live recording. I think we spoke about it a little bit and we probably would have ended up doing something like that. But yeah, that band kind of... We hiatused around COVID as well, and we're still in that sort of hiatus, I guess.
Okay, so there's still a possibility that more stuff could happen.
Well, yeah, you never know. I would, I'm not super confident that we would ever come back, but
Never say never.
Never say never.
Yeah. You're venturing into the world of doing live sound.
Yeah.
What is about live sound that has your interest?
I don't know. I've never done it, and I just have always been the critic at shows, and I just like
turn the guitar up in the mix.
Well, yeah, most of the time it's turn the vocals up, but I get it that you're battling a room and you're battling the live drum sound and all of the rest of it. But part of me is like, I don't know, it's just a feather that's not in my cap that I would like in my cap.
Yeah,
and I think I was saying to you before, producing, like being able to pick and choose producing projects a little bit more rather than just taking the gig to pay the bills is something that I would like to be doing. And so, you know, like if there's, because I've got a you know, bands like, you know, like Busika I could jump on tour with as front of house and having produced
and you know their music intimately. And
yeah, and I feel like I would have a great time, you know, being the guy like making sure they sound great out front and, you know, all of the rest of it. That to me is like...
It's more of an extension of the studio.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like it's... I don't feel like I want to just be like the lackey sound guy that's playing like... That just rolls in and does the local band at the pub.
Yeah.
I don't think that's kind of what I'm doing. But I'd like to just, you know, do really, really good shows and just see how I go.
Yeah. Well, I guess the sound systems and the quality of mixing desks has come such a long way in recent years.
Yeah.
That it's not that far an extension from the studio.
Half the plugins now that I use in the studio are available on live consoles now. Yeah. Actually, any VST plugin is with the whatever it's called.
Wave Sound Grid.
Yeah, Wave Sound Grid. There's another one I can't remember what it's called, but you know you can run UAD.
Yeah.
Live on consoles and stuff. It's great. It's like, oh, I know that. I can do that. I mean, not that it's, you know, like I'm playing around with Digicos and just, you know, it's so usable. Like everything's so usable. D-Lives are so usable. You know, everything makes sense. Yeah,
the quality of the compression and EQ inside consoles now is rivals stuff that you have in the studio.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really good.
Yeah.
What would you say would some of the pitfalls that you've met along the way? Some of the things you would go, if you had your opportunity, you would maybe avoid doing certain things. Is there anything that comes to mind?
I don't think I've got any kind of regrets in anything that I've done. I think everything's... You got to look at every experience as a lesson. I don't think I've had too many disastrous ones, to be honest. I think everything you do works towards making you better at what you do, whether it's producing, whether it's teaching, whether it's playing live. I mean, the things that I've found I've eventually steered myself away from has always been teaching, and I love teaching. I really do, and I really did love it. But I found it had an effect on when I was teaching too much. I think I had 60 students a week at one point, and I think I started to lose a little bit of my creativity. I think it sort of had a little bit of an effect on that kind of thing. I don't know how to really explain why. I think it just sort of burnt me out a little bit, and then also playing too many cover band gigs started to it's good in the sense of like learning a lot of songs has been really good, but you know, if you do too much of it, it can burn you out as well. There is something for me personally about producing and, you know, making and writing my own music that creatively scratches the itch in the right way. And I mean, that's kind of what I would like to be doing full time, you know, but you do what you need to do to pay the bills. I think for anyone who wants to pursue music as a career, I think being versatile, being tech savvy, big plus. You know, you need to understand the technical sides of your instrument, of recording, being able to record yourself, being great at your instrument. You know, ultimately is.
Do you think there's a flow-on effect too of learning business skills?
Well, you know what? Maybe that's probably the thing that I should have done better.
I think everybody probably say that though. I know it's one of the things that, from my point of view, it's one of the things that you have to do.
Yeah.
But nobody. Well, I don't know of anybody who actually enjoys that side of it.
Side of it, yeah. But
I
you need
guess-
to be savvy, I think, because it can be the difference between you sustaining the career or, you might do all of the right things in the other areas, but then because you fail at that, it makes it impossible for you to continue. And I mean, I look at what you're doing with even podcasting and being savvy with cameras and that kind of thing, lighting, all of those things.
I have always had an interest in techie things.
Yeah,
I love it. And
I think most
and
musicians
it's always
have a little bit
been
of it.
relatively easy for me to get my head around. Although, as I'm getting older, I'm finding that my tech savviness isn't as good as it used to be. And the great thing about it is there's a wealth of young people that are very tech savvy that you can access their information from there. I guess there's so much stuff online now.
I mean, things just evolve so quickly now, and I mean, my generation's used to it because we went from, almost no computers when I was. Well, there was computers, but it was so basic to where we are now. In the world of AI and all of the rest of it.
Speaking of AI, is that something that you've experimented with in any way?
Not so much personally, but I'm starting to see the benefits of the workflow and how it can help the workflow. And then, like Forrest has delved into the world of that quite a bit lately. And here's a script that'll beat detect your drums for you and all of this sort of stuff. And it's just wow. It's just click this button and it just goes, and it's just it can be helpful. And I'm not opposed to it. I think, it's sink or swim, right? You're either going to jump on that train and evolve with the times, or you're going to not.
You're going to be that old man yelling at clouds.
Yeah.
I remember a world that used to be.
Yeah, but I think it's that thing of getting back to a band playing in a room.
Yeah.
I
guess you've got to remember what the actual foundations of what you do.
Sure.
And then that can be just another layer.
But it's like what you said, we all have this little tech savvy side of us. I was a little gamer as a kid as well, but I also love playing instruments and skateboarding and surfing. It's the balance of the two and not losing the forest for the trees at any point.
Yeah.
So if you need to be tech savvy, but then, it's like becoming a gearhead and this compressor, this microphone. You just needed to do a bunch more takes and get the performance out of that singer, but you're sitting there, all your focus was on what mic you were using and what compressor you're using and the setting on the compressor. You didn't put enough time into getting the performance.
Yeah.
That's losing the forest for the trees.
It's always one of those things. It's interesting. And it's a great saying, and I don't know where whoever said it, but I do. It's one of those things I think producing you always have to keep in the back of your mind. It's way better to have a badly recorded great performance than a really well recorded crap performance.
Absolutely.
So the performance at the end of the day is king. It's
everything. Yeah.
It doesn't matter about the technical stuff as long as the performance. I mean, it's always great to have both.
Yeah, the goal is both.
The most important part is the performance.
The goal is both, for sure. And the goal, it's great to have good gear, to be savvy with that gear, and to capture, to have the right thing in front of the performer.
It is amazing, actually, the amount of quality gear that you can get these days at a budget price.
Yeah. I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with an SM7B,
No, there's...
But it's nice to have a U47 or a Chandler Red.
Yeah, so...
at the same time.
I've got to look into that Chandler Red.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Great mic.
Yeah. We were speaking about microphones earlier on in the studio next door. Is there a piece of gear that, obviously you're a fan of the Chandler Red. Is there a piece of gear that's your must-have in the studio?
A good microphone is always great, whether it's acoustic or a vocal being the most important thing. I'm a gearhead, but I just don't really like, and I do nerd out, but it doesn't really bother me. Sometimes I get into, with producers, I get into these gear conversations and I just get to the point where I'm like, it doesn't really matter, like it matters, but it doesn't matter, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
And then, like I think having good guitars for me as a guitar player is great, having made amp modeling work and effects work.
When you're recording in the studio, guitars, are you using amp modeling to record or using actual guitar rig?
I use Axe Effects.
Okay.
I have an FM9. Usually that's more the live one, and then I have a Axe Effects 3 in my rack.
Are they predominantly the same thing?
It's exactly the same thing, pretty much. Yeah.
Just a different foot switch.
Yeah,
system.
it's just a more foot switch version of it. I really love the Fractal. I've used Neural DSP. I've used Kempers. All of those things. I love the Fractal.
They've really come a long way.
I think it's incredible.
I had an Axe FX too, and it was a little bit.
3's a bit better. A lot better.
It's a lot better.
It's a lot better.
It is a lot better.
I enjoy the effects side of it, and everything actually is so great. Everyone's sort of, most guitarists look at it and they go, oh, too many parameters and pages and whatnot. I
love the Kemper because I do like the sound of it, but I also like the fact that you can just go and twist a knob on the front of the.
Sure. Yeah.
I know. I'm not sure. That was one of the things. I haven't played with an FM9, and I'm not sure how quick and easy it is to get to things on it. But I do remember that with the Axe FX 2, it was quite painful.
I think with the software, I pull up the software and it's like the main page on the amp is the same as the front of the Kemper.
Oh, okay.
You just go, yep, that does what
Yeah.
But you can deep dive, you can change tubes and all sorts of weird stuff in there, and the effects sound great. I mean, it does.
I think with all of the processes, you can deep dive.
Yeah,
and you can deep dive in the Kemper too. I think the thing I love about it is, volume gain. Like it's got basic amp controls on the front of the.
I think they all do. Like I think at the end of the day, it's that whole thing, like Steve Lukather did an interview more recently saying, I used to have, boutique hand-wired amps and, custom-made guitars and hand-wired overdrive pedals and all the rest of it. He goes, I don't care anymore. Just give me that stock thing off the shelf.
Well, he's gone back to using a foot, because he had the full Bradshaw rack and he's had all of the stuff.
He's like, it sounds like me no matter what I do, so who cares? And I get it. I totally get it. And it's just the same. Yeah. It's like, give me a real amp, I'll put some mics in front of it and have a great time because that's fun. The same as micing a real kit. Yeah. If that's what we want to do, if the band's like, this is what I want to do, I'll be like, great, let's do it. You got the budget to pay for a big studio with a console and a live room, and you want to spend the morning micing up cabs and shooting out real amp heads, or do you just want to just go, boom, here's a bunch of sounds that work straight away?
I guess everyone's on a budget, and it comes down to.
It's just you can get the same result, in my opinion, by doing it with the amp modelers, and as long as you like. As long as they're hearing it loud through the speakers and.
Do you find with guitars, and this is one of the things that I've found, because I use a Kemper, and I've done a lot of recording and stuff, and I've done recordings where I've not used an amp on stage or in a recording situation, just straight into the monitors with headphones or just monitors on super quiet.
Yep.
In comparison to what it would be playing through an amp. And then playing through an amp, and there is a slightly different sound or tonal thing going on when you play through an amp, like or have the Kemper coming out of a set of speakers, blowing air.
Yes.
Because the guitar...
The SPL, the weight.
The guitar strings, and the strings resonate in a certain way, which you don't get without the amp.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've experimented with or that you're aware of?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like if I'm recording, I mean, if you're in a studio and you got the amp in the other room,
you're not getting that anyway.
What does it matter? It's the same.
It's exact.
And it's the same
That's
as,
true.
Sometimes, most of the time when you're on a stage, sometimes they're ditching the amp and baffling it up so that it's not creating this mammoth amount of like stage sound. And, sometimes you're having to compromise your tone because you've got to pull the volume back so that the stage isn't
too loud.
At that point, throw me on in-ears on a stage.
Yeah.
And, if you want a bit of stage sound, throw some front fill and through the fold back. But with the level, how good modeling is.
Yeah.
I love, I really deep dive on my tones where I'm, adding like a Neve sounding preamp and a certain microphone on the cab and
oh wow
and like room reflection, and you just start to pull that stuff up. And sometimes I'll even get a little bit more like drastic and just have like a 90 millisecond reverb that's just dialed in, so it feels like it sort of sounds like it's in a room, but it's not like a reverb. It's just like a room.
It's like a reflection type.
Yeah, it just sort of feels like like you hear a great record,
gives it that level of 3D.
There's a guitar sound, and you can tell they've got a stereo set of mics in the room. So they've got the close mics on the amp, but then they've got the room mics up recording, and you just feel like, I just feel like I'm there.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm there, and I love that. I think that's, when I'm pulling tones, I'm thinking about that kind of thing that gets me excited about a great guitar tone on a record. I'm like, I want that.
Yeah.
So, that's where it's good. You can deep dive on these modelers now. It's not just like that, the pod bean, It's just like...
the pod bean.
Yeah,
oh, man,
classic.
I did some recordings. I did a recording with Louis Shelton for a band called the Wolverines.
Yep.
And he pulled out the pod bean, and I thought, here we go. Man, you can pull amazing sounds out of those things.
Of course you can. Good player.
Just blew my mind. What's the long-term plan for Luke Palmer at this particular point in time? I guess it's that you were talking about picking your production projects and...
Yeah, picking production projects. I've been getting into writing and co-writing a fair bit. And, having worked with Boosika on the previous record that we just did, and I was a co-writer on that project, and that got me excited about it. And then since I've signed with Origin for publishing.
Okay.
And so that side of what I'm doing is really exciting. I really enjoy the writing process. So absolutely would love to, keep going down that path with artists and doing the co-writing thing. But also, it kind of all seems to go hand in hand to a degree. So yeah, I think I love what I'm doing. I do love what I'm doing. I don't feel the need. I don't have like this like ambition to start a record label or anything like that. For me, I like making music, and like you said, like I will always come back to being. I'm a guitarist, at heart. So being on stage playing guitar is always going to be wherever there's the right opportunity. I will take that. And playing for guys like Glen is like bucket list sort of stuff for me.
I guess that, and the players that you get to play with are playing at a fairly high level too.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
got to be fun.
It's really fun, yeah, and it's really great. And so there's inevitably those opportunities that come up, and I'll take them where I can.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the publishing. How does that work for you?
It was quite a great deal with Origin, and it was through Craig Redders, his name is. He had me when we were signed to BMG with Dead Letter, and we were all individuals signed, but it was through Dead Letter, and he sort of helped me renegotiate the contract with BMG because that was more geared towards us as a band, whereas I went from Dead Letter to co-writing with a lot of different artists by myself. And, just the structure of it was like, what I was doing there was repaying a debt that Dead Letter had, which wasn't massive anyway, but it was, he was great. and this, talking about positive and negative relationships and I guess situations with record labels, this was a really positive one.
Yeah.
And so I ended up, renegotiating that deal and jumping over to Origin because he started with Origin.
Okay.
And they had, like Gautier and guys like that for forever.
So they're well established.
They're well established. Yeah, they've been around for years, but they're not like a major. But he's so great, very, always on the phone. Hey, I got this. Jump in with this artist, and there's always, someone he's putting me in the room with, and
That's great.
yeah, it's really good.
So
And
it's leading to more opportunities for you down the track.
yeah, and they pitch a lot to, ad campaigns and TV shows and movies. There's lots of like opportunity to say, hey, we got this movie and there's this scene that's like this, and we want this lyric. Is you got anything that in your catalog that has this lyric? And you pitch towards a lot of that stuff, and it's always a lot of like, you're putting it out there, and you don't always land things, but I like it. It's the world of publishing is a whole different animal,
And I guess at the end of the day, that could be it's another source of income.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
In a world where you're getting bits and pieces.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's, songwriting is so great. Like that's a massive part of what I love about music as well. So, like I said, yeah, you got to have your finger in about 20 different pies if you're gonna make it sustainable. I mean, you might be great at what you do and in the right place at the right time, where all you need to do is this one thing, and you can kill it and make it your career. I guess
it's that thing. As everyone said, there's people who are doing that one thing, who are killing it.
Yep.
But they're generally at the very top of that field.
Yes.
There's a lot of people generally down the way who are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think everyone at some stage has had to be diverse, has had to diversify, especially, in the world of COVID. And around that time where, all of a sudden live gigs disappeared. What are you going to do? Are you going to go back and get a day job, or are you just going to diversify and make it happen? And just keep making it happen. And I think it was sink or swim for musicians at that point in time, And
it was a tough time.
Yeah.
It was a tough time in making decisions about what you were going to do. For me, I tried to do the live streaming thing. It wasn't successful financially, but it was successful in what I wanted to do. Was I just wanted to be able to maintain my playing ability.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to have the people that I was playing with come in and play, so that when we come out at the end of it, I still felt like we had a viable, living, breathing band.
Yeah.
Where everyone could still remember how to play with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think it is a real thing where there is a certain chemistry that you have when you're playing together often enough.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose that, and that was part of my whole thing about doing the streaming thing.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who left the industry. Mm-hmm. Went off and said, well, that's it. It's all over. I'm going off to do something else.
Yeah, and I just think that it's sad. It had to happen. Like you can't just. Yeah, you had to do something. Everyone had to do something, and it was that moment of like, can I be diverse within this industry, and keep going, or is it, or if you are like maybe one of these people that were like, I do my one thing within this industry, and this is what I do, and that's it. And sometimes, unfortunately for that, type of player or person, that they just got knocked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's not to say that.
I guess it's also one of those things too. It was an interesting lesson in planning ahead, and because I know a lot of people particularly in the industry that we're in, they're living very meagerly. They're not. I mean, it's tough. it can be tough to put some money aside or have a backup plan in case things do go pear-shaped.
Yeah.
And they invariably do from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess that's the hard thing is COVID was definitely a test of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy industry to really thrive in sometimes. You can, and in
I
saying
think it's that thing. It's like sometimes you have your moment.
Yes.
I think that's the thing. It's like sometimes you have your moment where it's like, okay, the sun is shining, I'm killing it, things are going great.
Yeah.
And the one thing I think everybody has to remember is it may not necessarily always be that way. And when things are going great, you need to have a contingency plan when
100%.
things will change.
But I mean, I think generally speaking, anyone who's great as a musician at their craft, no matter what the instrument is, you know, I feel like the thing that we all have in common is that we know what it takes. There's a certain to get to the level where you're doing it professionally. You have to be tenacious. You have to practice. You have to put in the time. And I think because you have that as part of your personality, generally speaking, you're gonna do great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you know what it takes. You got what it takes to go hard and just repetitively just go and go and go.
Yeah, that's true.
And now it's pretty well expected that, you know, producers can, you know, they're tightening budgets.
Oh, you have to.
Everyone's trying to do things like as tight as they can. And so, you know, you throw out you know, per song I charge this. And most people are like, whoa. And I'm like, oh, really? Like that was...
I mean, you've got to look at how much time, and it's not only the time, it's what do you bring to the table, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one because it's the hardest part about producing stuff, particularly if you're doing it in your own place, is the cost of having that stuff is going up.
Yeah.
Yet the expectation for what you're going to produce is coming down. There's a point there where there's a point where you can't afford to go for any less.
I think it's important for producers to know that, you know, what you say no to defines you. You know, and I think you need to hold ground. I think it applies to live bands as well. Musicians playing live. Yeah. You know, don't stop saying yes to pennies, you know. It's you know, value. I think a lot of musicians and creatives just so desperately want to be doing this thing that they'll do it for free. And, you know, there's a lot of people that know that. I guess it's that thing. It's just if you value what you do, you need to back yourself. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And you've got to be able to show other people that you do value it as well. Yeah. And if you're giving it away for free, there's no... Yeah. You're showing people that you're not really valuing yourself. Yeah. And then that has a flow-on effect, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, I think just standing your ground and going, well, when you can afford it, come and see me. Yeah. You know, and it's I hate it being about money at that point, but if you're an artist out there and you want someone to produce it and do a really great job of it, they need to value that too. You know what I mean? I think when they put a value on it and they pour their own money into it and they get the result that they want, they value it more as well. With everything that's going on in the industry, do you see a time when the recorded product will be worth more than what it is now? Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? I think I'm really fascinated to see what the world of AI does to the industry and how much the average consumer just goes, we could pay a fortune to get someone real to make this piece of music, or we could just get AI to generate it for us. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the world of advertising, because traditionally that's been an area where you can make reasonably good money. Yep. And I can imagine AI doing a lot of music and TV advertising. I think it's a shame that AI the things that AI can't do at this point in time is the things that we kind of need it to do. So, you know, like, I feel like the creative jobs, the jobs that we all want to be doing, it seems to be the jobs that AI is taking. And then, like, you know, the jobs like manual labor and things like that, that we would prefer robots and that to do. That's not what's happening. It's sort of happening in the, I guess,
in the creative space.
The creative space, and that's kind of a shame, you know. But it's definitely interesting.
I do
watching
think that
the
there
way
is.
it's
I
evolving.
do think that there is the great thing, like you were talking about, with just having the acoustic guitar and recording the vocal without spending a lot of time doing vocal comping and being able to turn up and do that raw live experience. That's one area that AI will never be able to take away.
Yeah, and I see a side of music, the more AI is generating music and art, I see that raw, human, creative, you know, it's almost like I think of you know, the Nirvana era of music, that grunge era that was rough and raw, coming out of the back of 80s, which was clean and pristine. And,
particularly at the end of the 80s, it got ridiculous with big metal hair bands and...
Yeah, and it was everything was starting to sound, you know, like digital and... Not digital, but like, you know what I mean? Like pure and that. And then... Overprocessed. And then when like that Nirvana era of grunge kicked back in, people were like, real.
Yeah.
I sensed that, a version of that happening where...
People want to hear things that are more real and more human.
Yeah, we crave that thing that makes us go, I like that because it doesn't sound pristine and perfect like AI does.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Luke.
you. Thanks for having me.
It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
Spending a bit of time today.
Amazing.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around and watching the podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.